Our next speaker for this morning is Sadhvi Bhagwati Saraswati, Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance. I've had the pleasant privilege of listening to her talks and satsangs many a time on the banks of the Ganga, and I think she would be the right person to talk about ecological sustainability. May I please invite Sadhvi ji.
It's such a wonderful honor to be here. I won't take extra time by taking all of the names of the distinguished members on the dais, as has been done already so beautifully, but just to say that I'm so honored and so touched to be invited here, to be amidst such truly great heroes of this movement. As we speak about education for sustainable development, it makes us remember that we're talking about moving somewhere. We're talking about actually getting somewhere, not just about being hamsters on treadmills, running really fast but not actually getting anywhere. Education is that which is supposed to propel us forward, not just continue to keep us spinning our wheels in exactly the same place. Sunita ji spoke so beautifully about this argument of rights. Children have the right to eat whatever junk food they want. We have the right to buy anything in plastic that we want. We have the right to eat what we want, regardless of the impact on the water, the land, the air. Regardless of the palm oil that those snacks that the kids are eating are cooked in, and the trees that are being cut down to do that, regardless of the plastic packaging, regardless of the impact, that freedom, we've misunderstood freedom and autonomy to somehow be a license to decadence, a license to destruction, and it isn't. I have, as a human being, as a free person, I have the right, for example, to move my arm however I want. Nobody could say you can't do that, until and unless you are standing in front of me, and every time I do that, it bops you on the nose. At which point, my right to do this with my arm is trumped by your right not to have a broken nose. And we're now living in a world in which we have to revisit exactly where our right to eat, buy, produce, wear, drive, whatever we want, ends. And we're the right of people today and our children tomorrow to have air to breathe, water to drink, soil in which to grow their food begins. So I'm grateful to Sunita ji for raising that point, because as so many of us are working in a variety of ways with the United Nations, with associated organizations, multilaterals, unilaterals, whatever it may be, where concepts of human rights are so crucial, we need to also talk not just about human rights, but we need to talk about human responsibility and what that means specifically today. As we talk about education, and as we talk about education for sustainable development, I'm reminded of a beautiful story that I love of a businessman who comes home from work one day and is sitting in his favorite chair. He's tired, he had kind of a stressful day, and he's reading the newspaper. And his child comes up, and his child wants to play and talk, So the father, wanting to be nice and loving, but also really wanting to get the kid out of his hair, tears a page out of the newspaper where there's a map of the world in some advertisement. And he takes that map of the world and he tears it into about 15 or 20 little pieces. And he hands it to his son and he says, take this and put the pieces back together. This is a jigsaw puzzle. Take this and put the world back together. और उनको लगा फिर आराम से मुझको 3-4-5 घंटे तो मिलेगा. The child doesn't even know geography. He can't do it. Now, aram se, I can sit here and read my paper. A few minutes later, the child comes back. World is perfectly put together, taped all up. So the man says, कि तुमने ये कैसे किया? How did you do that? And the boy says, well, Dad, on the back of the map of the world, there was a picture of a child. I just put the child together, and the world automatically came together. That is what we are talking about today. Nelson Mandela said so beautifully that education is the greatest tool that we have, the greatest weapon we have to change the world. We look at the world, we look at the statistics. You don't need me to repeat them here for you. We know what's going on. We know what's going on in India as our cities are running out of water. We know what's going on in the Amazon. We know what's going on with world hunger, with water, with land, with air pollution, with global warming. But most of the solutions are these very band-aid, symptom-addressing solutions. Oh, here's a problem over here. How do we address it? Problem over here, address it. And we're not looking at the systemic issues and how much more effective it would be rather than simply symptom management to actually address the core. It reminds me when I was young, growing up in America, there was a game in the arcades that we used to go to where out of holes, a little beaver would pop up, and you had a mallet, a hammer, and the head of the beaver would pop up, and you had to hit it back down. And then a few seconds later, out of a different hole, a different beaver would pop up, and you'd hit that one down. And the more you did, the more they came. So they got faster and faster and more, and you were doing this until eventually you couldn't hit enough down, and the game won, you lost. But as I see what's going on so much in the world today, it reminds me of that. We're hitting down these popping up problems. And that's fine if you're a kid playing whack-a-mole in an arcade. It's not fine when we're playing with the future of this planet, when we're playing with the future of our children and our grandchildren. And so spiritually we talk about we need a consciousness shift. That's the big thing that in the spiritual world everybody's talking. We need a shift in consciousness. What does that look like when you bring it to scale? On a ground level, looks like education. That shift in consciousness, that shift in paradigm that actually brings about a change from the roots is education. We need a shift in our values. The beautiful Master of Ceremonies began by talking about value-based education. What are those values? Currently, the values that we're giving our children are me, more. We need a shift in values from, for example, I to we. My guru, Puja Swami Chidananda Saraswati ji, always says, when I becomes we, illness becomes wellness. Look at the word. Illness and wellness. When I becomes we, illness becomes wellness. And that's true whether we're looking individually, whether we're looking in our families or our societies or our world. When we are focused on I, we suffer. When we are focused on we heal. We need a shift in our values and in our education from a technology that is rooted simply in bringing the world to our fingertips to a technology that reminds us that there is a world beyond our fingertips. We need a shift in our values, in our education, from focus on innovation and entrepreneurship that gives us devices to track and check how many steps I'm taking each day, to actually knowing how are those steps impacting the planet. Like the education system that CSE is giving in schools for children to actually be able to track. Not just have I walked my 10,000 steps today, but have I walked even 5 steps for the future of the planet? We need a shift in our educational model of success from just success is what your grades are in class, what your ranking is in class, what college you get into, how much money you make, who you control, what you control, to a model of success that says, what is the impact of your life on planet Earth? How was this planet impacted by the fact that you got out of bed today? The water, the air, the soil, the future, the people. What are we spreading? And this brings me to a point that was raised so beautifully by an earlier speaker about lifestyle. One of my favorite stories of Mahatma Gandhi is a mother brings her young child to meet Gandhiji and says, please tell this boy he loves you, he worships you, he reveres you. Please tell him to stop eating so much sugar. It's really bad for him. So Gandhiji says, come back next week. So a week later, the mother brings her son back, and they go, and Gandhiji says, Beta, you must stop eating sugar. It's very bad for you. So the mother says, thank you so much, but please, if you don't mind, tell me, why did we have to come back a week later? And Gandhiji said, well, first I needed to stop eating sugar. I love that because those of us sitting in this room are the adults, we're the parents, we're the teachers. And as the children had asked so beautifully in the story of the Declaration, stop telling us what other people are going to do and start talking about what we're going to do. We are the educators. We are the curriculum writers. We are the parents giving the very first education. And as long as our vision of prosperity is one that enables us to have the money to buy furniture, tables, doors, or other items that are made out of wood from the Amazon, as long as our prosperity is something, our sophistication is something that takes us to eating meat instead of vegetarian food, that our prosperity is something that leads us to buy the SUV, our prosperity is something that leads us to think, yeah, I can drive this thing even though I have to go only 2 blocks. As long as our vision of prosperity is about what I can buy, what I can eat, what I can own, rather than the clarity of realizing that that wood belongs in the Amazon, realizing that I actually have the choice with every meal to either choose something that is degrading, depleting the planet's water, the air, or to make a choice for sustainability. Until and unless we as the parents, we as the educators, we as the uncles and aunties, the mentors, are prepared to walk that talk. Because I'll tell you something, these children are very smart. Very smart. And they understand hypocrisy. They can see through us in a second. And when we are speaking one thing and doing something else, They see it. And not only does it undermine the teaching, but it undermines our role as the parent, as the educator. And so we have to be prepared to make lifestyle choices that actually impact the world. You know, we speak so much, we're doing so much work for the Ganga River. And everybody's prepared to talk about why it's important to keep Ganga clean. Everybody's prepared to march and picket and like something on Facebook and sign a petition for the Ganga. How many people are prepared not to have leather couches, not to have leather shoes, not to have leather handbags, not to have leather car seats? Are we prepared to put our rupees and our dollars where our mouths are and to actually stop buying the things that are the fruit of that which is polluting the river that we're holding a picket sign to keep clean? These are the questions that we need to ask ourselves before we implement strategies. And this is why I'm so touched and so excited to hear and to see and to know the wonderful educational programs that are being done by CSE, by the Satya Sai International Organization, by so many organizations here on the dais and throughout the country. But let us do it with clarity, with courage to have the clarity to walk that talk. Lastly, our education system needs to be one that makes our children know they are not victims. They are co-creators of the world they want to live in. And as the adults, we have to let go of our death grip of control on them and allow them to really co-create the world they want to live in. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here. And lastly, as Dr. Rambuj mentioned in his opening, I have a sapling of the Rudraksh tree, which is our signature gift at Parmarth Nikatan. Whenever people come, it's the gift that Puja Swamiji gives them. And I would like actually for I'll bring it over there, and then together we can all offer it for the great clarity and dedication in bringing together this conference. And today, Ganga Nandani just reminded me, it's perfect. Today is Himalaya Divas. Today is the annual day dedicated to protecting and preserving the sacred Himalayas. So we know the mountains, the trees, are life. And so what better day during the year than to offer a sacred and indigenous tree of the Himalayas to the distinguished panel. And also, very lastly, I have had the very great blessing in these decades that I've been blessed to be here in India, to learn and to be touched by these values, by this tradition, by this education, coming from Stanford University, having that education, and then getting this education of true values and ethics and culture. And a book has been published. You could say I wrote it, but it doesn't feel like I wrote it. It feels like it was written through me, that has just been published last week by Penguin Publishers. And they are here outside the hall to offer that to anyone who would be interested for themselves or for their educational institutes, of those values, those ethics, those decisions for peace in our life, peace in our families, and peace in our nation and our world. Thank you.